Don't wait till the battle's over. Don't wait till the struggle ends. Shout now, shout now, right now. Shout now, shout now. Don't wait till you make it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PHILLIP Show. I'm so excited about today. I'm trying this new coffee. I'm not going to tell you what it is just in case I don't like it, but it's going to be great, I'm sure. So if you have yours, just grab it. So what's going on in the world today? One of the things that's so unique about the PHILLIP Show is that I love to highlight journeys and uniqueness and perspective. One of the things that is huge is different people are stepping into the arena of doing podcasts, of doing television shows, of doing all of these things that pre-COVID, a lot of people never would have thought about. But there are these people that have been around for a minute, have been making huge impacts within their community, huge impacts within the industry. And today we're talking with Darryl Demure, producer of Harper's Bazzarroworld, which is the oldest LGBTQ plus public access variety show in the United States. So help me welcome Darryl Demure. Darryl.
Hi, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Hello to Yellow Springs.
Yeah, well, thank you. And hello back to everyone over there too.
Wow. Wow.
So as I entered the show, you have been in the entertainment and media business for quite some time, making a huge impact, a trailblazer, many will say, have said, and continue to say. What do you, I'm going to get to your background in a second and what that means, but as kind of a pioneer, as somebody who is well installed, what is changing, do you think, in the world of media today?
Well, technology is forever changing. And I'm learning that for me to survive, and navigate, I have to adapt to this new world. And it's been so essential because, you know, for the last 2 years, we have been living during a pandemic, and the technology, which has already been here, has really helped us to adapt and stay connected and created a whole new sea of jobs and just universes that really keep us connected and keep our world going. And it's been such a necessity for me. I don't know what I would have done without it.
So when you got started, let's just talk about that. How did you get started, and why?
Well, I've been doing drag. I started drag in 1998. I was actually started pretty late. I was 32 years old.
Okay.
And I had been going out to the nightclubs for a while, you know, on and off since the 80s. And in the 90s, you know, I was kind of one of those club kids. I went through a period where I was sort of in the punk scene. I was always trying these different guises, you know, through my art. And I remember one day I was just, I needed a reboot. And I gave myself actually a schedule, and if I couldn't find something that really satisfied me creatively, I was at the point of giving up drag, and I don't know, life just went on. I said, I'll do drag. And the last weekend that I dressed in drag, or dressed as a club kid, I remember I had a giant silver afro, a silver tank top, silver shorts, and like giant platform sneakers.
You went all out.
I went all out. And then next weekend, Ms. Demure was born. And that led to so many different possibilities. And, you know, I had been out of television for a while then. I went to broadcasting school in the 80s and dabbled in it a little bit, but wasn't really sure what my niche was, because that's what happens when you're young. You're still trying to find out who you are. But it wasn't until I entered the world of drag that I knew that the whole community as a whole, it was like high school all over again. There were all these different cliques, and I was trying to find my niche, and I didn't want to be a pageant queen. So I remember watching DATV It was on back then. It was on Time Warner, and it was on Viacom before that. And I would channel search, and I kept landing on this channel. And I said, "What is this? This is so over the top." But it's just people in our community, and it was $20 a year. I said, "I'm going to go down there." I went down there, and just on a hunch, I went into the break room. I saw this bulletin board. I mean, they were actually bulletin boards that you actually like, you know, use.
You actually put physically.
So, like, oh my.
Yeah.
And there were all types of things up there. So it had like a little note saying, you know, if you would like to work with a producer, contact so and so. So there was this little small lady named Tiki Carcasamo, and I contacted her. I asked her, would you like to collaborate on a pilot? And back in 2000, we shot our pilot. And the people down at the studio, they didn't know what to make. I mean, this person walking around with a dress on, they're like, what is going on here? Nothing like this has ever been done in the history of Ohio. And so I said, you know what? I want to do things that haven't been done. I think that would give me my own originality. So we got together, we started planning. It took us a few months, but we filmed the pilot. And the people down at the station, they were not comfortable with it at all because even though it's community television, you have the spiritual channel and then you have the non-spiritual channel. And so the hypocrisy began. All the things that they promoted started, you know, backfiring a little bit. And I had a lot of problems in the very beginning. People didn't shoot with me. And because of that, the staff actually had to come in and help me with some of my earlier episodes because that was such a challenge. But I won them over. I eventually won them over, and they saw that I carried myself, you know, I was a human being. I carried myself with dignity, and they saw that. And I went on a way to show them, you know, this is going to be a teachable moment. I have a chance to make this a teachable moment in Dayton, Ohio. And
how did you, sorry to interrupt you, how, in the midst of that, I know a lot of people, when they're faced, these will be considered obstacles and roadblocks and, you know, things to either get around, get over, or just quit because they're either too big, too high, too frustrating, you know, and a lot of this comes with identity and who am I and how flexible am I allowing myself to be with being who you want me to be versus who I know that I want to be and what I want my show to be. When people were talking about this isn't going to work, did you ever say, well, let me try or maybe I should try and do something that they think would be a little bit more acceptable?
No. I mean, it was weird. Actually, my earlier shows were a lot more racy. I mean, I was really, you know, it was like, okay, you had a neo-Nazi show on at the time. There was a neo-Nazi show on at the time. And I remember there was a big scandal where they did this live show and they were 100 calls on this live show complaining about the rhetoric and the really bad language. And I received one call, you know, down the line because I was on TV in a dress. And I said, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen. I was also getting it from my LGBT community because they fit inside this box. So I thought, you know what, the only way, and I've come back to this many times in my life, the best way for me to win is be authentic. Myself. And every time I've gone back to that, I've won.
Isn't that interesting? I know when you were first talking, you were like, I'm not a pageant girl, I'm not this. So even through all of these discovery moments, it's just kind of like, you know, well, let me find my own way based on who I am, not what this scene says or not what these people are, you know, demanding a lot of times. So now you've been here blazing these trails for, what is it, 22 years now?
Yeah.
22 years. And just so people there know, I know that the show's here based in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Some people that are watching all over the world may not know what DATV is. What is DATV?
DATV is probably one of the oldest and one of the few surviving public access stations in the United States. It's community television. And a lot of, like in Ohio, you have DATV, and I believe there is a public access station in Cleveland, Ohio, and that's pretty much it. A lot of the public access is probably one of the last community television stations that's out there. It's very old school. And so if you look at that, it's such a treasure. And we have the best in the country, the most state-of-the-art. We have robotic cameras. So it's not some old, dilapidated, hello, Parker, who is doing this.
Yeah. Hey, Parker.
Hello. He wants mommy. Hello, darling. But
I love it.
And so, I mean, that makes it more of a gem. I mean, there's a public access station in New York, the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, which I have been on air in New York since 2004, been on in Dayton since 2000, and their station is extremely small because they have so much. And just think, DATV is a large station for for where we're at, and it just makes it even more of a gem.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that you were. I didn't know you're all the way up there in New York City.
Yeah, I have to tell you a quick story. 2 years ago, one of my followers, his name is Tom, and he was home one night, and he turned on television. He was channel surfing, and he saw me performing a number. He says, "What is this?" And he told his friends about it, and he started following me. He started watching me in New York. So 2 years ago, he invited me to be a guest at his home in Harlem, and he and his friends threw me a garden party.
Oh, wow.
So I went up there, and it was so nice. And, I mean, these are some of the gifts and treasures that have happened to me since doing this show, starting this show in 2000. The networking. I mean, ever since the pandemic happened and everything shut down in 2020, I had already been, interviewing celebrities on and off, but this took it to a whole new level with Zoom.
Yeah.
And so the show keeps reinventing itself. It keeps reinventing itself without me even trying.
Wow. And and you were talking about, pivoting, I guess, if you will. It's like you were talking about technology and how things change, and just being pliable that way to say, hey, things are changing, and I'm evolving as well, and let's just go with what's going on. You're also huge in like in the community and what's going on in politics. Why is not just being an entertainer and being a speaker, I guess, if you will, on the platform, but really being vocal about what's going on in the world? Why is that so important to you?
Well, it goes back to what the queens and the transgender women did at Stonewall. I feel like it's my duty, it's my calling, and no matter what I do in entertainment, it always goes back to Stonewall and passing that heirloom and recipe down to the new generations. And I know a lot of the girls, at least in my backyard, and across the masses, they're all about RuPaul's Drag Race, and I hail to the Queen RuPaul. I love that show, and but I want the queens to understand the showbiz part is wonderful and it's fun and it's all about the bells and whistles, but you're going to get to a point where you're going to start thinking about what legacy do I want to leave when I leave this earth?
Yeah.
And the older you get, that becomes more of a conversation, and it becomes more of a thought process. And you have to say, what do you want to leave the fact that you're an entertainer? An entertainer is wonderful, but when you have that platform, what are you going to do to give the gift to the next generation?
Yeah. And I know that even talking about next generations and looking forward, you know, we're in a very interesting time now with everything that's going on in politics, with all of these things that are pretty volatile when it comes to next steps and decisions that the public makes. So look, let's just jump in. I know that you love some politics. What, in your perspective, what in the world is going on out here?
Well,
what's going on?
You know, I'm not a mathematician. You know, as Madonna says, I'm not a mathematician. All I know is addition. But the thing is, the last 20 or 30 years, there's been dumbing down. You know, with all the stuff that we love, the bells and whistles, cell phones, entertainment, it has gotten us so distracted from educating ourselves or being woke, and having awareness that we allowed a celebrity come in and completely shake up our world. And we're continuing to do that. Our democracy is on the brink of destruction, disappearing. And we're allowing this to happen because it's inconvenient. Because it's too intense, it's too hard to deal with. So we have all these things that we can go to. Meanwhile, there's sinkholes opening up. There's all types of things happening in front of us that are going to destroy our foundation. And we need to stand tall, stand together, and fight. I'm so glad you invited me to this program, because if you're watching, young people, please vote. I remember what it's like coming out of the closet and my late LGBTQ plus father rejecting me. And the fact that I'm able to come full circle with that and see that happening on a bigger scale now, it's you got to look at the bigger picture. Look at what happened in Nazi Germany. Look what's happening with our sisters right now. We need to be motorized. We need to get out there and vote. You don't have a choice when it comes to losing your choice.
That's good.
These people on the far right, they want to have the rights. They're complaining about everything else. They want to have a right to take away your rights. And you know what? It's not right.
Where, you know, I was speaking to somebody the other day, and I love this conversation because I was speaking to somebody the other day, and one of the things that I try to do is I feel like everybody is an intelligent person. I start there. And then as me coming into the conversation saying, okay, you're an intelligent person as I am, but somewhere we disagree in a very specific way. And it's almost like I'm trying to see what it is that they see, that they see. Have you ever just like, now, how did you reach that conclusion? What do you think is being missed? How can the chasms be so far? How can it be so wide? How can the sides be so far apart?
Well, I really believe the hunger for having quick fixes, our attention spans are they've been so altered to the extreme that it's really hard to penetrate that, even when you're trying to come up with common sense. And trying to reach across the aisles has been absolutely exhausting, even with the truth. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm exhausted from it. It's not going to stop me.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's such a tough question. That's a very tough question.
I find a lot of, and young people too, but I find a lot of people now use media as a source of facts, and they stop with whatever outlet that they're listening to as if those are the only sources of facts, or if they actually have them. And, you know, I was speaking to somebody else the other day, and, you know, we run the risk, and they run the risk of, if you only listen to one particular perspective, then the holistic side of the entirety of it all sometimes is missed, because I think there's a lot of nuance. Do you think that because we have so much access to so many people's voices that we just become desensitized from searching and we think we have it all?
Oh, absolutely. It's to the extreme now. And when people are out there looking for the information, it's more about satisfying their needs. It's not about hearing the truth. Hearing the truth, even if you don't like the truth, that's when you have the facts. But hearing the truth because hearing your perspective on what the truth is because it makes you feel good, then you're just gonna keep on living in this circle. It's like that movie Groundhog Day. And how do we penetrate that? How do we get people to where people are in the cult? Cults have cults. That's where we're at with this. It's really completely taken over. And in my day, we only had 3 networks, and it's like those networks. I mean, they were strong. It was like a label that's been around forever, and you know that label is good, and you know you can rely on it. And they always, you don't have that anymore. People just they want to go with who has the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
and they're willing to sacrifice their brother, their sisters, their friends, their allies, just so they can have that gratification. How do we get beyond that?
you know, it's I find that we're in a very unique time in history now, but I don't find it's that unique. I feel like not every year, but it seems like we're always in some position to say, this year is different. We have to do this because this year is different. Even though there's been some degradation and a lot of interest in people's rights. I was talking to a young person, and they gave me the sense that they didn't feel like it mattered to vote. They gave me the sense that it didn't feel like they didn't feel like it mattered to fight because we're always fighting about something. And it was an interesting perspective. I didn't agree with it, but I was just listening to understand how people could become, fight fatigued. We've been fighting.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because it's just like, well, my fathers fought, my grandmother fought, my uncle fought back in their day. Now we're fighting back in our day. It seems like the common denominator of every generation is fight. And it's like, so whether I fight today or whether I don't, somebody's going to have to fight tomorrow. So I'm just going to bow out of this battle. It sounds like a lot of people are just like, I'll just be on the sidelines and just voice my opinion behind the keyboard. And, there I go.
That makes me so angry because they're treating it like it's a menu at a restaurant. Like, oh, well, I don't want cheese on it. I don't want peppers. I'm just going to pick that. I mean, you really, people, you really need an awakening if that's the perspective that you're going to have, because you are going to lose like there's no tomorrow. And from what I've been reading in the last 24 hours, there seems to be more and more people across the aisles that are on board with the abortion issue. And I really believe right now, and I'm feeling this in the last 24 hours, that Supreme Court decision is really starting to backfire.
And in your perspective, how so?
Well, I just saw something, and it could have been Newsweek, but they were talking about how veteran hospitals are not going to stop veterans, and these are young veterans that may be expecting and not able to carry the child because of physical issues, or they want to have an abortion. That's going to be allowed now. So there are people out there, there are warriors out there that are fighting for us, and they're slowly chipping away at what's been happening in the last few months. So I really believe that there's always another side.
Yeah, I feel like all of these conversations are they're very nuanced, and I think a lot of times people go to the conversation with a broad brush, and then all of a sudden they paint this broad brush over everything, and then something lands on their doorstep and they're like, oh, but not that. Like, know this for everybody, and then all of a sudden it becomes personal. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now I'm impacted by it. Let me rethink this.
And unfortunately, that's what's going to wake everybody up, you know. And so I really feel like with all these wins Biden's been having lately, I do feel positive about these midterms.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like the blue wave is going to happen again.
Yeah.
Even with all this stuff working against it, which I get angry about, and I feel passionate and I feel personal about, and it feels like there's no end to it. Just like you said, with all these young people are feeling, people are still waking up in spite of all that negativity. So life, and it will renew itself.
Mm. Yeah, you know, and I think it takes, and I think you're absolutely right. And I think it takes us all to, you know, do something. If not you, then who? You know, those phrases. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Those kinds of things. You know, and we can't put it off, no matter what you're passionate about. You know, no matter what it is. You know, but things that are very specific and very culturally sensitive, and you know, now that impact now and the future. You know, it's our job and our duty to be aware, you know, to be involved, and to not grow weary, you know, and that's always, I guess, the prayer, if you will, you know, because people have been fighting for a long time. People have been trudging for a very long time, you know, so it's kind of like, you know, yes, but don't grow weary.
Well, and you're doing such a service. I mean, you're the president of Yellow Springs Pride, and you have this show, and you are passing that torch. You're doing the work. It is so important. You should be so proud of yourself. We have to do this. We have to move along our community, all our communities, and you know, as well as our African American community. We have to lead by example. And I see so many people out there doing it, and I see so many people out there that's not doing it, that have the platform. But you know what? Hopefully, if we can inspire one person, that person can inspire 5 people, and down the line, that person can inspire 50 to 100 people. That's how it works. It's a gamble, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's a gamble, but it's worth it. I love that. I need a T-shirt that says "It's a gamble, but it's worth it." I do. I might have to design that today. So, with everything that you're doing, happy 22 years of, again, trailblazing. What is next for you?
Well, right now, I am prepping for a TED Talk. I don't know when it's going to happen. I'm actually working with a consulting firm. They're helping, you know, everything I do in my program is pretty much ad lib. It used to be just a little scripted in the beginning, but I've been doing it so long, it's just I'm on autopilot.
Yeah.
So working with this consulting firm has been challenging, but in the good way. It's like fighting that inner, you know, improv person of me to just go out there and do it. And I have to be a lot more structured with this. And so I've been, you know, it's been a little challenging. Like I have to send out my application to 100 venues. I finished it a little over a week ago, and I haven't sent it out because I'm having a little butterflies right now. And but I know I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, wow. It's scary and exciting because this could open up doors like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think I'm afraid of finally getting what I always wanted. Mm. And usually I'm the one that just will jump out of a plane and do it.
When you said always getting what you always wanted, what is that?
Well, I think I will be able to get myself out to a bigger platform, mm-hmm. and be able to network with people that I've dreamed of networking with, and being able to just really push the envelope and inspire the masses on a bigger level. Mm. I mean, I want my legacy to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I don't know. I think this was meant to happen.
I believe so too. You know, we go from season to season, and you're stepping into a new one with apprehensions. However, you got this. Yep.
Oh, thank you. I think I do. It's a little overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for all of the years of paving the way, for all of the commitment, you know, that you've given, and for even setting yourself up to be in the position to take the next steps. So if history is any indicator of what the future is going to be, I think that you can look forward to a very bright future.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. I hope that you'll come back.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Wonderful. So, what an inspiration today. Darryl Demure here after 22 years of, you know, being on air, clearly a seasoned communicator, a passionate and inspirational person, and an intentional trailblazer. And we are so blessed to be able to sit and speak today. If you are out there wondering how you can make a difference where you are, one of the simplest things to do is vote. You know, figure out where you stand, figure out your position, figure out what's impacting your life, figure out the kind of future that you want, figure out what is best for the world, and it's everything that surrounds you. Who are you, and how can you make this world a better place for someone else? So as usual, thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to remember that you are the best you in the world, and I will see you next time here on The PHILLIP Show.
Don't wait.